Hi everyone, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. My name is Osereme, and in today's video we're going to be making this beautiful peplum white dress. I actually love the skirt part a lot for the fact that it has this polka dot design underneath. So if this is something you're interested in, definitely keep on watching, and if you're still here to subscribe to the channel, please hit on the subscribe button and turn on notification bell so that when we upload a new video on this channel, you will be the first to see it. So guys, to make this dress, you will need about 2 yards each of the fabrics you decide to use. The fabrics I'm using here are both crepe. Even this one is crepe, but it just has a way it looks like a net. This one is a stronger crepe. I got 2 yards of it, and then the polka dot as well, I got 2 yards of it. So this is what you will need to be able to make this dress. So now we're going to get started with the pattern drafting. So I have my pattern paper here, and I'm going to start by drawing a straight line across the top here to serve as our starting line. So from this line, I'm going to start taking other measurements. So from the shoulder line down to the bust line here, then under bust, which is 13 for me, and then waist, which is 16. All right. So I have my shoulder line, which is where we are starting from, my bust line, my under bust line, my waist line, and then here I'm marking my hip line. Now after the hip line, I'm going to mark a point here at 28 inches. This is where I want the white part of the dress to stop. All right, so now I'm going to draw straight lines across each of the points that I have drawn. Just in case you didn't get the line earlier, let's label them. This is the shoulder line, bust line, under bust line, waistline, hip line. And then here is, let's just call it the hemline for now, but that's just for where the white part is going to stop. So now once you're through with this, you're going to go in from the shoulder here by 3 inches for your neck width, and then come in again by half of your shoulder measurement. For me, half of my shoulder measurement is 7 inches, so I marked 7 inches, and from that 7 inches point, I came down by 1 inch, and then connected that 1 inch to the center of the neckline that I drew earlier. So after this, I'm going to come down by my armhole depth. All right, so for this, I took a measurement around my armhole and divided what I have there into 2. That's another method of going about it. So for me, my armhole depth is 7 inches. So this is usually referred to as the chest line, CL, so I just labeled it CL. So now once you're through with this, I am going to just draw a straight line from the shoulder slope here, which is the one we drew down earlier, down to meet the chest line. Okay, so once you're through with that, you're going to divide what you have on this new line you created into 2 equal halves, and then from that point go in by half of an inch. Now on the chest line, you're going to mark your bust measurement divided by 4. All right, so once you're through with this, connect all 3 points together, just like you see me doing like this, to give you a beautiful curve. Now this is your armhole curve. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to come in from my waistline here, and I'm coming in by half of my nipple to nipple measurement. I marked it also on the bust line, and I'm marking it on the hip line as well. So I'm going to draw a straight line to connect all 3 points together. So guys, once you're through with this, the next thing you want to do is on the waistline, go out on both sides of the line by half of an inch. Make sure you're doing this on the waistline. All right. So once you've done that, from the bust line, come down by 1 inch, and from the waistline, come down by 4 inches. Okay, don't be confused. Just try to follow exactly as I'm doing it. So once you're through with that, from that 1 inch you came down by on the bust line, connect to the waist, and then from the 4 inches you came down by on the hip, on the waistline, connect back to the waist. So that's going to give you your dart. All right. So now once you're through with this, the next thing you're going to go ahead and do is to now add your body measurement. So now on the bust line, you mark your bust measurement divided by 4. And on the waistline, you mark your waist measurement divided by 4. But because you're taking that here, you will have to replace it back. All right. So let me just measure my waist measurement divided by 4. Then I replace the dart, which was 1 inch back. Now on the hip line, I'm going to mark my hip measurement divided by 4. All right. But I'm not going to follow it squarely, but I will just mark it just so I know exactly where my hip measurement is supposed to be. Okay, so now once you're through with this, I'm going to go ahead now and join the sides together. So from the chest line to the bust line first, and then from the bust line to the waistline. Okay, now I'm not going to be connecting from the waistline to the hip. The hip is supposed to be opened a bit like a flare. Okay, so I'm not going to follow this point exactly. from the waist, I will just go out with my ruler to go outside of the hip. The essence of having the point is to make sure that what you are creating is a bit bigger than your hip. So I came outside of my hip to create this curve. So guys, once you're through with this, the next thing we want to do now is to create that peplum design on the skirt part, which I think is actually very easy. So what I'm going to do now is on the hemline here, I'm going to measure what I have. All right, so from the center, place it and then divide what you have there into 2 equal halves with your tape, and then go ahead and make a mark here. So once you're through making that mark, what I'm going to do is to go out on both sides of this mark by about 1 inch, or you can do half of an inch. Okay, so I'm going to do 1 inch on both sides. Once you're done marking it, you should have 3 different points here. All right, so now once you're through with that, we're going to leave that area for now, and we're going to come to the side where we're going to take the curve from. So from the waist on the side here, I'm going to come down by 6 inches. Okay, and I made a mark here. So from this point, I'll create a curve here to meet the center. Okay, so the other points that I created at the bottom part were supposed to serve as a guide. Okay, so let me just, I'm trying to actually use my curve here to create the curve to meet the hemline. So from the 6 inches I came down by on the side, I created a curve down here. You can see I did actually get to the 1 inch point that I marked on the sides. Okay, so from the waist here at the center again, I came down by 6 inches as well, just like I did on the other side. And from this point, I'm going to also create a curve towards that center point that I marked as well. So I'll create it like this. All right. Okay, so now I'll just make this area curved nicely. All right, so yeah, this is it. We're done drafting out the front pattern, and this is the pattern I'm going to be using to cut out both the front and the back. This pattern that we are drafting out right now is the front. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw out the front neckline. So from the chest line, I came up by about 1 inch. Okay, and I'm going to draw a straight line across. Okay, now this is for my neckline. Now from the neckline here, I'm going to now draw a curve towards the side. So from the center, it depends on how wide you want your neckline to be. I came in by 4 inches. Okay, so from this 4 inches point, I'm going to connect a line to meet the shoulder, and then make this shoulder line more visible, and then make the armhole more visible. So you can see what the neckline is looking like. The neckline is actually a straight one. It's not round, it's not V, it's just straight. So I just created a straight line and then connected it to the shoulder. So once you're through with this, you're done drafting out this front pattern. I'm going to go ahead now and cut it out. Once you're done cutting out the body, go ahead and cut through the waistline just like this. So now after cutting through the waistline, at first I wanted to go ahead and seal up this upper part so that I don't have to stitch down the dart on the upper part, but I just realized it's not necessary. I'm only going to do it later on the skirt part. So don't bother yourself cutting out this dart, just like you see me doing like this. I didn't end up taking off the dart, all right? So I just decided to leave it as it is without taping off the dart. So the only part where I taped off the dart later was on the skirt part, all right? So now I'm going to go ahead and use these ones now to cut out on my fabric, and I'm going to show you how to go about it. So guys, these are all the pieces, okay? So I've gone ahead to use them to cut out on my actual fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and explain to you guys. So I told you guys I was going to close up the skirt part. So this is what I mean. I went ahead to just fold the dart away and pinned it down before I used it to cut on my actual fabric. So this is the front part of the skirt. I also went ahead to cut out lining for it. So this is it. Now for the back, I used the front exactly, but made sure to have extra stitching allowance at the center back for my zipper. And then I added about 1 inch to the side as well for the normal stitching allowance, just like I did on the upper part. So on the upper part, I had a round neckline. I had my zipper allowance at the back for the back pattern. And then I had my side extra 1 inch for stitching allowance, just like you see I have here, all right? So now I went ahead to also cut out lining pieces for every single one of them. And I'm making use of a type of crepe as well, although it's not the exact crepe I'm using for the front pattern, for the front side. So I'm using a type of crepe as well, just so that when you turn it over, it looks really neat. So now I'm going to place the front piece down together, right sides facing each other with the lining that I've cut out. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and pin around the neckline and the side, because that's the first thing I'm going to go ahead and stitch on the sewing machine. So now for this front, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch around the neckline and then the sides. Now for the front skirt part, all right, what I am going to go ahead and do now is remove the pins. Like I told you guys, we're not going to be stitching down that on the skirt part, because you can see I folded it away. All right, so now for the skirt part as well, I have cut out a lining piece, just like you see. So they are faced right sides facing each other, and I'm going to stitch around the side and around this curved area here. So I'm not going to be stitching the waist area. For the back skirt part, I'm also going to just be stitching the center, the curve, and the side. And for the upper part, I'll just stitch the neckline and the side. So I'm going to do this and turn everything over to the right side and iron it out. Alright guys, so these are all the pieces that I have gone ahead to line. So this is the back, this is one of the back, and this is the second one. All right, so you can see I actually lined each of the crepe with a type of crepe, a softer type of crepe. Don't go and line crepe with your normal lining, it's going to start looking funny. All right, so now this is the front part. You can see what it looks like. You can see a fine neckline shape, and then this is the skirt part of the back, the two of them here. I've gone ahead to iron out everything nicely. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the front and the back, I'm going to place them together, right sides facing each other, just like you see me doing like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin the shoulder areas together, go over to the sewing machine and stitch down that area. Now remember, I told you guys that the upper part of this dress is going to be having a dart. So when I go over to the sewing machine, after stitching down the shoulders, I'm going to also stitch down the dart as well. So I'm using my normal method that I use on this channel. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I always turn everything over with one of the lining. So I just go ahead and pin it down so that when I'm done stitching it down, it looks very neat both on the inside and outside. So I'm just going to pin this down. I'm done with this side, so I'll do the exact same thing for the other side as well. So I'll use my lining, one of the lining, to turn everything over and then pin it down. Alright guys, so this is what I had after I was done stitching down the shoulders, and then I went ahead to stitch down the darts both in front and on the back. So that's it for the upper part for now. So I went ahead to cut out a basic long sleeve. I have a video on the channel on how to go about that if you already don't know how to go about cutting out a long sleeve. Now for this particular sleeve, I didn't really want that puffy thing at the top, because I don't usually like things like that on my dress. So what I did was I cut out the armhole, and what I'm doing is I'll just make very tiny pleats on the shoulder area when I get there. So basically I'm going to go over to the sewing machine now and stitch the sleeve around the armhole, but when I'm doing it, I'll just make very tiny pleats around the shoulder area. So guys, this is what it looked like after I was done. You can see now I went ahead to fold in the bottom part of the sleeve, the hem of the sleeve. I didn't want to use my normal sewing machine, so I use hem gum to just iron it in place. Although it doesn't stay very long, but I just feel like it's going to look way better on this than actually folding it. So after I was done, this is what it's currently looking like. It's looking really nice and it's coming out nicely. So now for the upper part, I'm just going to go ahead and join the sides. So I'm going to start from the body all the way through to the sleeves on both sides. So just like you see me doing like this, go ahead and pin it down from the body all the way through to the sleeve. And then when you're joining this on your sewing machine, you will need to use your body measurement to measure on the bust area and on the waist area to make sure that you are stitching with your exact body measurement. So now for the skirt part, you're going to also stitch them down as well from the waist. So this is the front, and then I'm going to align the two back pieces of the front as well, of the skirt part, sorry. So place them right sides facing each other, and you're going to use the exact waist measurement you used on the upper part to stitch down the waist measurement of the skirt part. They have to be exactly the same thing. So after stitching down the waist, just go ahead and stitch it all the way down, just like I have pinned down like this. Alright guys, so this is the upper part and the skirt part stitched down separately. So you can see if I bring them close to each other, you see it's exactly the same waist. It has to be exactly the same waist, please, when you do this, okay? So now we're going to leave the upper part first, and we're going to work on the skirt part. This is what the skirt part is looking like right now. So we'll need to cut out the black and white fabric to use as the bottom part of the skirt. Now, for the length of the black and white fabric, it will depend on how long you want the full dress to be. Now, this was actually a mini dress, so I wanted the full dress to be 32 inches by the time we're done. So the upper part was 16. That's the shoulder to waistline was 16. Now, from the waist down to the end of this part, I decided to also make this length 16. Okay, so 16 plus 16 is going to give me 32, which is the full length I wanted this skirt to be. So the length of this black and white fabric is 16 for the shorter part, and then for the longer part where we are going to make our gathers, it is very long. I think I had about 6 yards when I measured. Okay, for the length, I had about 6 yards. So what I went ahead to do was, on one side of this, after I was done joining the pieces together to give me that very long length I wanted, I went ahead to make a gather stitch on one side of it. Okay, and when you're making a gather stitch, you just use a loose stitch and you do not back stitch at the ends. So I'm pulling on one of the threads now that I have on my gather stitch to give me the gathers. Now, this was very time consuming because the fabric I was gathering was so much, because this fabric is actually kind of like net. This crepe is like net. So I needed to gather a lot of it so that when you put this on, it doesn't start being revealing, especially for the fact that I did not want to line it. If you look at the one we're trying to recreate, it wasn't lined. All right, so I wanted to have it look exactly the same way because I just like how it looked on the model that wore that dress. So now I'm going ahead to just pull on this thread. I'll pull on it until I get to the other end. When you're pulling on this, you have to take note of the waist part of the skirt. Okay, so you can measure around the waist area of the skirt until this gets to that point, so they are exactly the same thing. That's when you will stop. Okay, so after I was done making my gathers, it finally got to the point where it's exactly the same length as what I have on the skirt part, just like you see here. So what I'm going to go ahead to do now is to now pin the white skirt part on top of it, right sides. Make sure that both right sides are facing you when you're doing this. Okay, so I'm going ahead to pin it down. Can you see? Okay, after making the gathers to be the exact same length as the waist that I have on the white part, so I'm going ahead to just pin everything down like this, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine first and make a straight stitch to join these two pieces together before we go ahead and join this with the upper part. So this is what it's kind of looking like right now. Okay, you can see it's looking really nice. So I'm going to open this up and go ahead and make a straight stitch to join them together. So guys, after I was done joining them together, this is what it looks like. Okay, now the two pieces are now one. So we're done with the skirt part. Now we can now join the upper part with it. So remember, I told you guys that the skirt part waist and the upper part waist must be exactly the same thing. So if you've done it exactly the same thing, when you place the upper part, it's going to align perfectly, like you see what I have here. So I'm just going ahead to pin the both pieces together, right sides facing each other. So guys, once you're through with this, we're going to go back to the sewing machine and just make a straight stitch to join the two pieces together. So after I was done joining the pieces, this is what I have. You can see it looks so nice and beautiful. And then the last part that we have to work on here is the back. And the back is actually very simple. All you have to do is determine the area where you want to place your zipper. So I have a white zipper here. I'm going to place it from the upper part to somewhere around here. It's going to go down into the skirt. So I'm going to stop the zipper somewhere around here. So I'm going to start pinning down where I want my zipper to stop. So from here, where my pin is going to start from, I'm just going to make a straight stitch to join all the pieces together. So make sure you align them properly as you're doing this. So I'm just going ahead to pin them down. I'm going to make a straight stitch to join the areas I'm pinning down together right now. And on the upper part, I'm going to make fix my zipper, and that'll basically be all for the making of this dress, because the bottom part of the polka dot fabric doesn't fray, so I'm not going to be hemming that end. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. So after I was done fixing the zipper to the back, and everything was done. This is what my dress looked like. Yeah, that's all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you find it helpful. Let me know what you think about this dress in the comment section, and I'll be seeing you guys in my next video. Bye.